I was teaching this very topic in a class at BYU several years ago, and I was teaching something, and I'm just giving this to you kind of as a short circuit you when you're ready to throw your pens at me saying, Brother Top, that's false doctrine or something. I had a student raise his hand and he said, Brother Top, that cannot be true. And I was a little taken back. And I mean, the younger generation, they're pretty challenging now. And they push the envelope a little bit. And I said, well, why do you say that? He said, it can't be true because I've never heard it before. Now, if that's your validation of truth, is that you've heard it in gospel doctrine class, then we've got other problems. We've got some areas to learn our religion. One of my professors when I was in graduate school many years ago compared a gospel doctrine Sunday school class. He called it the rearrangement of ignorance. And I think that's kind of an interesting observation, is that we just move the pieces a little bit, and the most often cited source is, I heard somewhere before. President Joseph F. Smith, President of the Church then. Man as a spirit was begotten and born of heavenly parents and reared to maturity in the eternal mansions of the Father prior to coming upon the earth in a temporal body to undergo and experience immortality. It teaches that all men existed in spirit before any man existed in the flesh, and that all who have inhabited the earth since Adam have taken bodies and become souls in like manner. Man is the child of God. This is the doctrinal statement by the first presidency. Now, I have not taught you anything that you didn't already know, so your prayer hasn't been answered yet. We're going to keep going, though. There's a phrase in there, though, that says an awful lot more than we think. So, man, as a spirit, was begotten and born. What's the difference between those two words? What do you think?
Conception and childbirth.
Okay, in fact, that's the way we think of in mortality, and I think it fits very beautifully, and I think you're going to see in just a second that the pattern of mortality can help us to understand some things of pre-mortality and vice versa. So, conception and spirit birth. How that takes place hasn't been revealed to us. But we know that there is something there about begetting and birthing that's very, very significant. Now it's the next word that's even more important. Okay? So as you look at the word up there, the next phrase, excuse me, born of heavenly parents, and then the phrase, reared to maturity. That is a really important phrase. Reared to maturity. What's the difference between begotten, born, and reared? Think of your mortal pattern as well. What does rearing imply to you? Okay, so you're going to teach them, you're going to raise them. What else? What did you do in your families as you reared your families?
Discipline.
You what?
Discipline.
Okay, so there's going to be some discipline. So if you're going to discipline, what does that imply? What?
Something wrong.
Some of the kids messed up. Or maybe it's the children disciplining the parents. But it implies teaching, discipline, what else? Okay, go ahead. I saw your hand.
I was going to say teaching.
Okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on there. Nurturing is not just formal lessons. Most of the teaching and training and disciplining and nurturing and shaping that we do with families was maybe more informal than just formal. So think of that phrase, reared to maturity, before we ever came here. What does that phrase reared mean? Now let me just share with you, okay? So let's look and see what that means as we unpack that phrase. Begotten, born, and reared. Those three things. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is the doctrinal significance of what it means to be children of God. To be begotten and born begotten by and born to heavenly parents. Okay, the first thing is the scriptures tell us, and we talk about it all the time, that we were created in God's image. So that principle of divine nature, we are of divine origin. Now, what does that mean? We say, I am a child of God. We have I am a child of God posters and necklaces and bumper stickers and everything that you have there. And we know that we are created in God's image, but what does that mean doctrinally? Okay, look at this statement. I love Brigham Young's great saying it straight. He said, I want to tell you, each and every one of you, that you are well acquainted with God, our Heavenly Father, or the great Elohim. You are well acquainted with Him, for there is not a soul of you but what has lived in His house and dwelt with Him. Now think of that phrase, reared. So when you're dwelling in the house, what does that mean? There is not a person here today but what is a son or daughter of that being. In the spirit world, their spirits were first begotten and brought forth, and they lived there with their parents for ages before they came here. This is perhaps hard for many to believe, but I love Brigham just tells it like it is. But it is the greatest nonsense in the world not to believe it. And if you do not believe it, cease to call Him Father, and when you pray, pray to some other character. Wow!